Okay, have a 1998 Buick Century, 3.1 engine, and unfortunately, it has the dreaded intake manifold leak that all GMs have. Seems like an ominous force right here. Well, I'm going to start ripping this apart. First off, it's going to come up the upper intake, the actual valve covers off, coil pack, alternator, all this fun stuff. So give me a little bit here. I'll record as I go, and we'll see how this turns out. Okay, this is the 3.1 GM engine that has the local leaking lower intake manifold. I've got almost all the accessory off, the alternator, the coil pack, anything that has to be removed to get the actual intake manifold off. As of right now, the upper intake manifold has been removed. From here, we have to remove the fuel rail itself, all the electrical connectors, and some miscellaneous wires that's hanging around here. You also have to remove the power steering pump as it is bolted directly into the lower intake manifold. After that, the valve covers must be removed because once again, they are bolted into the lower intake manifold. And inside you'll find the push rods. They will have to be loosened and removed as well. All right. Well, we have the upper intake off, we have the lower intake off. Now we can have a good look at the valley here. And we got the push rods here, the rocker arms. Those will have to be removed. But that gasket, this guy right here, as you can see, there's a gasket that's supposed to go right there and right there. That one's completely missing. That was where she was leaking. The engine was not leaking internally, so it wasn't leaking coolant into the engine, thankfully. But it was leaking pretty bad going outwards. So next thing we have to do, loosen these rocker arms just enough so you can get these push rods out. Make sure when you remove these that you put these in order. These are different sizes. If you mess up the sizes, you could cause damage to the camshaft or the engine itself. Okay, remove the lower intake manifold and clean everything up and replaced it with the new lower intake manifold gasket. I highly recommend anytime you do these. This is a new model design. This is by Felpro. This is actually a metal design. It's only about $20 or $30 more, but this design makes it so if you do it properly, it won't blow no more. During this process, you have to make sure all the back metal here has to be cleaned very well on both sides here, as well as this right here. This is where you're going to put your silicone sealer on both sides. Make sure all gasket material, or the best that you can do, is removed, and you clean it with brake parts cleaner. The same thing with the lower intake manifold. It has to be real clean. Once again, it's not going to be perfect. A lot of times you'll see that it has a little bit of pitting here. Same thing with here. With this new metal design, it has rubber seals right here so you don't have to use any silicone there, and it'll actually make up for those little pitting, which does happen just because it is an aluminum manifold. So now what I'm going to do is take my silicone and spread a nice thick bead here and here. You don't need a whole lot, just enough so it's a nice thick bead and it'll seal properly once you put the intake manifold back on. Okay, I'm 3/4 of the way done with this intake system. Got the lower intake reinstalled, the valve covers reinstalled. Got the alternator loosely mounted, power steering pump back on, and the motor mounts back on. I'm just unfortunately waiting. Small little clips that hold the fuel injectors into the fuel rail themselves has been damaged, so I have to wait a couple days to get those from the dealer. Glorious. But this is where I'm at right now. Roughly about, once I get those clips, about an hour, hour and a half at max to reassemble the upper intake manifold. Other than that, this is what it looks like about 3/4 of the way done. Yeah, a little update on finishing the lower intake manifold gasket on that 98 Buick Century. Unfortunately, when I got the fuel injector clips, my digital camera actually broke. So unfortunately, I was not able to videotape the last part of the actual series. Just a little tips while you're installing that, make sure that all of the fuel injectors are seated properly. The fuel injector retainers are actually in properly and everything connected. When you put the actual upper intake manifold back on, make sure you tighten it in a cross pattern, meaning stars. So for example, top left, bottom right, bottom left, top right, etc. Work from the outside in, and when you tighten it, you don't need a whole lot of force. Both the lower intake manifold and the upper intake manifold are torqued to a certain specification, which I will include at the end of this video. If you have any questions or anything, feel free to email me. My email is discountautoservice@live.com. If this video helped you, I'm glad it did. If you feel like that this is something that you rather not tackle, feel free to email me at any time and I'll give you a price quote on any vehicle that you may have. Thank you for viewing.